Hey, what's up, internet? It is technically the end of the first week of Ultimatum. We're a little bit past that now, but Friday's in the books. It's officially been an entire week, and we got pretty much everything that we wanted to done. Our Atlas is fully done. We're gonna want to get some more Watchstones, right, to get back to the kind of farming we were doing in Ritual. That's gonna take a little while yet. We've killed Cirrus on Awakener 8. We've killed Maven a couple times now. She dropped me a Maven orb today, which is nice of her. We haven't quite finished up our Atlas. Maven skill points, most of them have 5. I think Glenok does not, Valdo's does not, and Proxima does not. Now some of these I don't know if I will keep, but I've actually... So Harvest is pretty nerfed, but I still want to try and get a Fracture out of it. And I made a bunch of money today off of the div card gambles, so I don't really mind investing into Harvest in one region. I made that hay work because it's got the bonus chance for tier 4 plants and less common crafting options, so this is going to be my best chance, I think, to get the Fracture specifically. I'm not as concerned about fighting Oshabi. I wouldn't mind the +5 to the Horde crafting station, but then I've also got the Ritual nodes up here. I kind of enjoy Ritual up here. It's kind of just a cheap bonus. You could also take Essences up here and be happy about it. The Betrayal stuff up here is pretty good, although I prefer Valdo's, I think. With the new way that Betrayal was changed, you're going to want to kill Katarina more rather than just set up permanent safe houses, I think. So I prefer to do that down in Valdo's. Turn's End, I talked about this before, but I really like the buff to Trespassers and Exotic Goods. This is a good zone if you want to do some low tier map farming, like you're just rushing to Ultimatum in lower tier maps. Adding something like Trespassers, Exotic Goods makes that a fairly bit more lucrative, right? Because it's not like Harbingers where you've got to sit and fight this pack of Harbingers for like 30 seconds or whatever. You just run these things over and they drop nice little stacks of loot. So this is a pretty good line nowadays. Glenok, I really like the Beyond and Alva pairing here. This is for setting up the best temples, just like it was in Ritual. And then this has a really good set of Beyond nodes where you get basically a 3% Beyond on every map, and then much faster Beyond spawns, because the portals are larger and it requires less demons. And then you get some free additional currency. This is probably what I'll take for my last one here in Glenok. New Vastir. I feel like New Vastir really got nerfed. I don't plan on farming a lot down in New Vastir anymore. I still think the War Supplies Emblematic is the best line down here to try and get bonus splinters, basically. Emblematic is basically double splinter drop rate for the most part. And then you get an additional War Horde, which is great because it just means more chances at splinters that could drop as an emblem. I took the Nico line up here. I took both. Well, I'm going to take Packed with Energy too, but I wanted to try the Out of the Blue, and I just haven't had much reason to farm Nico down here yet. I just don't feel like any of this stuff is that useful. The Rogue Trader got buffed a fair bit. It was probably the worst Atlas line in the game before, I felt, but it still seems pretty suspect to me. Valdo's, like I said, I really like having Betrayal down here and Harbinger. Harbinger's still pretty good as far, just like in turns where it's like, this is a sort of guaranteed profits, and if you do happen to get, the custom, like the crafted Watchstones that have Harbingers dropping extra stacks of shards, or the much rarer, like, improved currency stacks, like the rarer currency shards, this is still a decent, like, cheap farm, right? Where no matter what map you're running, you're going to get value out of this. So it's not terrible. Definitely got nerfed, though. Lyra, I mentioned this in the last video. I'm a big fan of Blight this league, and I made a bunch of money today just running Blight maps. You get a lot more Blight maps, it feels like, down here, with epidemiology or whatever. And the Blight maps have been pretty good to me. And then I'm also pairing that with heist. I spent a bunch of time yesterday gearing up my rogues and sort of setting up for this farm later. This is going to be one of my first target farms, I think, after this first week, which is just going to be sitting down here to farm Blight in Lyra Arthane and add heist to the map device to constantly pull blueprints and try to find some of these fully revealed blueprints. Whenever it's like a gem or a currency one, I typically walk out of there with like at least 1 to 2 exalts, because you have the whole blueprint is revealed, right? So immediately you've saved a ton of rogue markers. And 1 full stack of rogue markers right now goes for about 1 exalt in the league. So this is a lot of value when you pull a whole blueprint out. Lex Proxima, I feel like this is also a pretty nerfed zone because of the nerfs to Harvest. Harvest was kind of carrying this zone, and so without much of a reason to run Harvest here, unless you really want to farm Oshabi here, I feel like I'm not going to be doing much in this node, or in this zone. I still like the Pact with Energy. They actually buffed this one a little bit, to where it also does +1 to maximum all res, but it's not much of a change. I took Breach up here, just to try and get some early Breach stones. I don't know. I think I'd probably stay out of Lex Proxima this league. And then Lexajoris, also a pretty nerfed node. Delirium has been nerfed pretty hard. And you're not going to run Alva up here when you've got Glenok making super temples. So this is sort of out. The Metamorph nodes are pretty whatever. Parandus got super nerfed. Another region I'm probably going to stay out of for the most part this league. These nerfs were overdone, I think. Parandus got way over nerfed. Delirium got nerfed. I wouldn't say over nerfed necessarily, but the pairing of these nodes in the same region when you weren't taking these other nodes often anyway, I think it really hurt Lex. And then here in the middle, I'm not done. We're actually going to go get 2 skill points here in a minute when we fight the Elder Guardians. I killed Cirrus and got like a 1 exalt gem last night, so I took these points out. I don't plan on farming much Cirrus this league. I also don't really feel like Zana is pulling her weight anymore with Harvest being in such a condition that you're almost always going to want to run it in Haywork. When Harvest is worth so little when you don't have nodes buffing it up, there's no reason to hunt for them with Zana. And most of the other things she can offer there isn't that useful, especially when they nerfed the chance to encounter something like Cortex from Zana. So your odds of encountering a Cortex are much worse than they were last league. So for now, I've just taken close allies to get more master missions for like Alva and Einhar for when I run them in Turn's End. And I've split between Remnants of the Past to get more Guardian maps. Those are still selling pretty good at this point in the league. They're probably like 20 to 25 chaos a pop. And then Neural Pathways, also the synthesis maps, selling for a fair bit. Cortex naturally selling for the most. I still haven't found one. But they doubled the drop rate of this node. And it stacks with your awakening level. So hopefully we can get a few more synth maps out of that. Gear wise, I wouldn't say that I'm like done, but I'm definitely over the tough part of gearing, right? I've got my 6 link, I have my awakened gems. I actually bought a couple of facetor's lenses and made one of my own to level my awakened head and cold to 5 to get the +1. I don't have an enchant on my Virides. It's probably one of my next things I'm going to be chasing. But I did get a bottled faith today, and I got into the large cluster setup that I like using after the stream, which actually wound up being very similar. I made this large jewel myself. I got pretty lucky making this, and I'll probably slam this with somebody from Betrayal just to get one more mod. Hope maybe I'll actually get an augment from Harvest so I can target something like Chaos Res for this slam, but I literally have not seen a single augment this entire league, so I'm not holding my breath. Then the usual Cold Conduction, Astonishing Affliction into a Blessed 3-pointer, and then I've got my Sleepless Sentries and Ancestral Reach totem node so that I can get onslaught even though I've given up my silver flask for this bottled faith. And then I've currently got a 1 mod Watcher's Eye, so just the crit strike chance while being affected by hatred. I've also still got, I put a clear mind back in since I went to the large cluster jewel setup. Eventually here I do have a brutal restraint, I just haven't rolled it to any decent level yet. So that's something else on my list to do. I'd probably like to get damage pen here as a enchant instead of mana regen. And then wands would be on my list. Like, I bought this wand last night for 2 exalts, which was a great price. Obviously it doesn't have an implicit that does anything, but you know, when it has a 92% spell damage roll like that, you have to think, like, if this had been a 70% spell damage roll and the implicit was 22% spell damage, what would you have paid for the wand, right? And the answer is probably more than 2x. So this was a pretty no-brainer purchase, I thought. And I think my other wand is the same as before. So that's where we're at. 7 days in, we've cleaned up almost all the progression there is to clean up. I have to get a Cortex before I can do the Feared. I'm sure I'll record that. I don't expect that to be much of an issue. I gotta find a Minotaur map to get my other 2 points from that. And then there won't be really much left to do. We've killed Trial Master, we've killed Uberat Ziri, Shaper, Elder, Cirrus, 8, Maven, Trial Master. And now we need to get a couple of points. So I'm going to run a fairly easy Elder Guardian map and hopefully not die after I just spent all this time explaining how cool my character was. Oh, let's wait for these textures to load in. There's been a lot of texture streaming issues this league that feels like they had it sorted out in Ritual and now it's worse again. I'm not sure why. So I think we've got Constrictor over here. We want to dodge his Scourge Arrow. And now we've got Eradicator, and I do want him gone. Like, that's why. That attack is very hard to dodge, I think. And now we've just got Fireboy here. He should be dead in a second. And that'll do it. 2 different Watchstones, I like it. And nothing else. So with these 2 points, like I said, I'm not sure exactly how I want to spend these. Getting the Watchstone modifiers will be good later, but I don't have enough crafted Watchstones to make this worth necessarily. Synthetic Source, if I wind up farming synth maps, would be okay, but probably going to go into, for now, Gaze into the Abyss, because I've got a few sets of Elder that I want to clear out. Give me a better chance to get a Watcher's Eye. So I'll take that for now. I'll probably pull those points out after I'm done with those Elder sets. What else is there to talk about in this last update? I guess we can sort of wrap up our thoughts on the Ultimatum League itself, right? The mechanic. Because, you know, I felt like the mechanic was more fun in the campaign. Once I got to maps, and the density of the encounters really started to feel like it got out of control. Like I said, it reminded me a lot of the threat and density of a Delirium map packed into a ritual-sized circle. And so it doesn't feel like there's a lot of thinking going on in the map version of Ultimatum. There's thinking going on when you're picking the modifiers, only a little bit, because I feel like almost everybody's taking the same ones. Stalking Ruin, very easy to dodge. Choking Miasma, very easy to dodge. Once you get a Hindered Jewel, you can take the Restless Ground and it's basically free. Hindered Jewel also blocks Hindered Flasks. You're almost always avoiding the Limited Flasks, the one that removes flask effects when you press any other flask. I feel like we're mostly taking the same modifiers. And the gameplay is also desperately run in a circle and avoid the 2 things you picked in the Stalker and the Miasma and hope that you don't get too many apes with 20 auras stacked on top of you. And I don't know. when you look at the rewards that he's offering, sometimes you're like, man, this is very risky in a tier 16 map. And it feels like it got there just by brute force, right? If I just feel like if they pulled the monster spawns back a little bit, things would feel more normal. But it just, I thought Ritual at first, and Ritual League felt like a lot of mobs. And then this league came out, and it's just like, there's clearly a limit. There's definitely, now I understand there's a limit to the amount of density we can have and have this game feel like it still makes sense. And this mechanic is well beyond it. I do think the inscribed ultimatums are a little more fun. It reminds me of Delirium in that way, where I felt like the orbed maps were a lot more fun than the mirrors in random maps. And this has the same effect where when you have a clear arena and it's not nearly as limited and there's no randomness like the layout of your map and where the ultimatum spawned, it feels like it makes a little more sense. The density is a little easier to control, and I think it's more exciting, right? You're actually wagering something that you could lose. So I don't know, I feel like the mechanic, just like Delirium, they really nailed it more in the map device version, but then the one you encounter in random maps, I'm not as thrilled with, and I think it's worse in this league than it was in Delirium. I will say that I really appreciate that there was a more interesting second layer to this league mechanic, because I felt like that was where Ritual fell down. The Ritual mechanic itself, with the whole blood vessels, and you capture bosses sometimes and use them in the next map. It's really boring, right? It doesn't feel very involved or very interesting. You just sort of pokeball one map and you use it on the next map. So that part of it was not very exciting. That there was no like second step where there was like a unique boss or anything. In this one, they have a pretty cool unique boss. He might not have quite enough health. Once you start gearing out, you can kind of just splat him, and the fight is actually not terribly good at reacting to him taking that much damage all at once. I don't want to be too spoilery with you, I guess, but I don't feel like they expected you to hit him that hard. I will say I still really think that these Atlas skill trees were one of the best things that happened to the game. I think when it comes to making this level of progression fulfilling, when you invest like an entire week and I'm still doing things, right? I'm still checking off tasks. I'm still looking forward to finishing out things and thinking about what I might still be farming. I like that. I feel like there were so many nerfs to some of these things that the gap between when I started mapping and when I got here felt too dead, I guess. It felt like too much work, too much of a chore, and it wasn't even going to remotely pay off until I was here, right? So I hope that we can see some kind of improvement to that stretch of game, from hitting maps to progressing my Atlas and my Maven stuff, and getting maybe some of the master improvements that come from the Atlas skill trees. Like maybe some of these things should be earned in a different manner that happen before I'm done, right? I don't like that feeling of, well, I've killed everything in the game, now I can start farming. I mean, if you look, I still don't have a bunch of these. I can't even favorite most of my maps, and I've killed every boss in this game. I feel like some of it's got to get pulled back a little bit. And if you think about how much I've played this game, when I'm basically creating content and videos and streaming, 7 days this whole past week I streamed. Like, what is the average person, like, how far are they right now? You know, maybe there's too much to grind through before we get to something interesting there. So I hope they think about that. In the short term, though, I do think that Ultimatum probably needs to have the spawns brought in line a little bit. At least if the arena is naturally smaller. Like if you run into like a maze or an arachnid layer and they only give you like this much arena, the spawns cannot try to jam the same amount of enemies as if you were in dunes and you had twice as much space. It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't feel right. So I hope they do something to address the way this mechanic works in maps. And it would be nice, frankly, to see Harvest come back a little bit. You know, I felt like Harvest deserved to get nerfed. I thought it was crazy overpowered. And they wrote a manifesto after Harvest League saying that they knew it was so powerful that they couldn't make it go core until they did, and they didn't nerf anything, right? So I hope that they bring some of the power, at least the amount of crafts you get per harvest, bring some of that back. Because, like I said, I haven't seen a single augment, not one exalt recipe at a harvest. And, like, look at this. 3 days and 19 hours. Almost all the content in this game is done. I gotta go maybe find all in Delve. Maybe I can find one of the bestiary bosses. Most of this stuff is done. I haven't found one augment recipe. So maybe Harvest got hit with the stick too hard, and they need to bring that back a little bit to make that feel rewarding. But otherwise, you know, I think the league will be okay. I think it probably won't hold people's attention as much as Echoes did, just because it's sort of like it's all nerfs, right? This is like nerfed Ritual League. So I don't know how many people are going to stick around for, you know, all that long, when anything you could do at endgame you could have done last patch just better, which is a little bit unfortunate. We'll see though. I probably will be ending my League Start Progress series here for this league, because at this point, you know, when I've got all this gear, I've got Bottled Faith and 6 links and all my jewels and I'm almost level 98. It feels a little pointless to keep calling it League Start Progress, but this probably won't be my last video of the league. I'm just going to not be releasing them necessarily every day, and the next videos will be more specific about some topic, about something about the build. I do want to upload my first Trial Master fight still. I will be doing that this weekend at some point. And I will still be streaming. I will not be streaming every single day at this point, now that the League Start is mostly over with, but I will be streaming 3 to 4 days out of the week. And you can find me at Twitch TV/WallickTV. I typically stream in the early afternoon around like 2 p.m. Pacific. So that'll wrap up the League Start Progress for Ultimatum. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. I hope you found this video series useful. If you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up and all the other YouTube buttons. YouTube loves that stuff. So until the next video, good luck. I'll see you then. Peace.